Well, this is going to be a little bit difficult because, yeah, these things are quite difficult to explain for the ones who have never used those. But I will try. In this video, we're going to be talking about these beautiful devices, which are VKB Gladiator NXT Evos, and deciding whether they're actually worth it to buy right now or not. So without further ado, let's just get it started. Yeah, we don't need to waste the time because there is a lot to discuss. So first things first, what is it? So in this case, I have a HOSAS system of the NXT Evo. I'm just gonna call them NXT Evos because, yeah, full name is just way too long. HOSAS, for the ones who doesn't know, it's handstone, stick, and stick. So instead of throttle, I have two sticks. And don't worry if you don't know what HOSAS and Hotas mean, I'm gonna be making a separate video about that. So I'm gonna be explaining everything there. But right now, let's talk about Gladiator NXT Evo. But first, let's discuss the pricing and how much these things will cost you. Before that, these sticks were actually sent to me by VKB, which I'm very thankful for, but I'm not being paid by them. I'm not obliged to do any content for them. They just sent to me just to test it out, to check it out for myself. And I'm doing this review by my own will. And yeah, they're not gonna watch this video before you do. So let's discuss the price. So Gladiator NXT Evo Space Combat Edition, in this case, single stick will take you somewhere from $135 to $175. Because yeah, there are a few different configurations in that, depending on you have a regular edition, premium edition, or with an omni throttle. And when you order it in a package, you get a disassembled product, which consists of base and a stick itself. And if you order omni throttle, and also has an omni throttle adapter attached to the stick. So what buttons you have and what you get? So first things first, the stick itself, you have a stick that can pitch, yaw, and also rotate on a Z-axis. You also get three basically D-pads for your thumb. These are all actually D-pad, clickable D-pads, and you also add one kind of like an analog stick that can move freely. This stick can actually be replaced with another D-pad, which you also have included in a package that you can replace it yourself. You also have one thumb button for firing. Also have two-step fire button for your index finger, which is basically two buttons. For the premium edition, you also have additional two-way button that can be pushed or pulled, and this is only for the premium edition. You also have additional button for your index finger on the side, and one for your pinky. For the premium edition, you also have additional D-pad for your thumb, and for non-premium edition, this will be a regular button. On the base, you have three buttons available on the top, and also three different dials. One is basically kind of like a throttle control dial, one is, well, regular scroll wheel, and one is self-centering wheel. You can get for a left and right hand edition, and the difference will be only in stick. The base will be identical for both. And for the left and right edition, everything just will be mirrored for the left or for the right hand. So depending on which hand is dominant for you, you can get anything that you want. In case of omni throttle attachment, this is exactly the same stick, but in my case it's for the left hand, and all it has is just an omni throttle adapter that lifts up an adapter and just pushes it to the side. So that gives you a feeling of diagonal throttle. And overall, this thing feels solid. It's made entirely out of the plastic, except for the base plate, which is metal, in order to give it a weight. To be fair, it feels quite high quality. The buttons feel and sound pretty great, but these are meant to be more or less a medium grade to high grade throttles, right? And they actually are, and they allow you to give you quite a bit of personalization for yourself. And by personalization, I mean that you can actually set up the sticks in whatever way that you want. The package comes full of a bunch of different parts, and it might be a bit off-putting at first, but they are actually very useful. The first thing that you will see is a bunch of different springs, and springs are actually very useful because you can actually change the tension of the sticks themselves in order to fit your needs. You have three different springs, and in my case, the pre-attached was the 20-pound springs. You can install 10-pound springs, which will make stick much more lighter, or you can attach the 30-pound spring, which will make it far more stronger if you want something with a little bit more or less resistance. And you can actually change the springs depending on which axis that you want. For example, in my case, on my omni throttle, I have a 30-pound spring for the forward and backward movements, but 20-pound spring for any other movement. So it's a bit harder for me to accelerate and decelerate than it is to turn to the left and right. On these sticks, you can also set up a clutch. Clutch is basically how fast this stick can actually get to the initial position. So for example, if you move forward and if you let it go, so clutch, the regular clutch will just go immediately to the center. But if you want it to move a little bit faster or a little bit slower, you can actually set up this as well. Like for me, in my case, I have clutch set up for my forward throttle to go back a bit slower, so it's not immediately swings back to the initial position, but for my backwards movements, I have made it so that it would just move to the forward position as fast as possible. And it's same for my left and right movements. And you can actually set this up in whatever way that you want. It's not as difficult. All you need to do is just tighten some screws or loosen some screws. Also, you can actually completely block different axes if you want to move only on a few axes. This is more useful for your left side for your throttle than it is for your right side, unless you want to block your Z-axis. Like for example, in Z-axis, you can actually put a screw on a button and it will just block your movement from to left to the right if you don't want it in a certain games. And you can actually use this for your side-to-side movements as well. For example, for your omni throttle, if you want to use the omni throttle as a throttle only, you can actually block the side-to-side movement, and so it could move only forward and backwards like a regular throttle. And also you can even completely remove the spring if you don't want it to self-center itself and if you want to use it like a regular Hotas throttle. And all of those additional things make it very, very customizable and very, very amazing sticks, especially for the space games. But it's also great sticks for any other flight simulators. Like for example, if you want to fly only planes or only the spaceships that are moving just like planes. For example, in Star Wars Squadrons, you can lock all axes except for the forward and backwards because your ship can only move forward and backwards and just fly it like a regular plane, and do the same thing in games like War Thunder. While you can leave your right stick completely free and just move in whatever direction that you want. And with an amount of buttons that you have, you will not have issues mapping practically everything that you want. For example, even for the complex games like Star Citizen, you have enough buttons to map practically everything that you want. Plus, because VKB actually has a separate software where you can set up different profiles, you can actually switch different profiles and have multiple profiles on a single stick, allowing you to have even more buttons to control. So this way, this makes it extremely comfortable to play the space games and any flying games because you don't need to move your hands that much and you don't need to move your fingers that much because everything is either under your thumb, under your index finger, or under your pinky finger, allowing you to have like any control that you want. One thing that I had an issue at first when actually I got this, and I think you will also have this question, is with the size of these things. Well, how big of a hand that you need to have in order to have this, in order to control this comfortably. But first things first, I have both have fairly large hands. Like for example, this is an Xbox controller in my hand, and I actually have quite a bit of like more or less large or above average hand. Like for me, like Xbox controller is a bit small, to be fair, because I have quite long fingers that grips where I need to use actually claw grip on my controller in order to control it more or less comfortably. And I can simply say that for my large hands, when I remove any grip attachments, by the way, we're going to talk about grip attachments in a second, my hand fits perfectly comfortable, and it is maybe just a little bit small for me, just a little bit small for me. So if you have a large hand, like quite large hands, this might be a little bit small for you. Not very small, but a little bit small. But if you have a medium to quite a small hands, then it will be more or less comfortable for you, because this thing has an attachment that raises up your palm rest, giving you ability to have your thumb a bit higher and giving you a bit more control. And this only has one downside, because when you're lifting up your hand, you have a bit harder time to access your pinky finger button right here. So yeah, that's actually one downside that I actually experienced, because when I got the stick, it actually had palm rest attachment, and I was finding it a bit hard to reach by a pinky button, but when I removed it, the issue was completely gone for me. So if you have a large hands, it might be a little bit small for you, and if you have a smaller hands, this will be practically a perfect size for you. And overall, these are amazing pieces of hardware. However, there's an issue with the software. Software is, I would say, quite outdated, but in reality, it's made for the people that are more enthusiastic and that really don't want a very user-friendly experiences, because these things are not made for everyday people. These are made for the people who are enthusiastic about the things, about tinkering, and want everything to be made for their liking. So yeah, that's a bit understandable. But now let's talk about the important one, about pricing. How much will they actually cost you and what you will get with this price? As I said, cheapest Gladiator NXT Evo, and in this case I'm talking about Space Combat Edition. And by the way, the naming convention with VKB is absolutely awful, I'm sorry, but the difference between the Space Combat Edition and any other editions, in this case is World War II Edition and F-14 Edition, is that they have a different stick. The base is the same, but stick is a different. So this stick is actually, in my opinion, this stick is the best because this has the most amount of buttons. So if you want the best Space Combat Edition, is the best stick that you can get. The cheapest version for this is the regular standard edition. Standard edition has everything that premium edition has, except for this button right here. It does not have a D-pad, it has only regular button, and does not have additional trigger buttons for your additional trigger button for your finger. So it has 6 less buttons than the premium edition. And for $135 you can get both left hand, and also you can get for right hand. So together both left and right hand will cost you around $270. But what about Premium Edition? Premium Edition again has additional D-pad for your thumb and additional trigger right here, and it costs $165. So for additional $30, you actually get 6 more buttons, and together for your left and for your right hand, it will cost you $330. There is also NXT Evo Omni Throttle, which is basically a Space Combat Edition Premium, but with an addition of Omni Throttle adapter, and this will cost you $175. So together, if bought as is, these things cost $340. So these two things cost $340. It's not cheap, but compared to more high-end editions, it's quite cheap, because your more high-end sticks like Peripherals and Win-Wins can cost you more than $300 to $400 for single stick, not for both. And there is also talk about upgradability. For example, if you don't want an Omni Throttle, just want to have 2 sticks, you can get that, and also get the separate Omni Throttle adapter, which you can buy separately, but it will cost you $30 if you're gonna buy it separately. To be fair, in my case, because I don't play that much of a regular plane simulators and I mainly play space sims, I would prefer actually to have both Omni Throttles for both the left and right hand, and I think I'm gonna buy a separate adapter for this one myself. This way it will be much more ergonomic, because Omni Throttle left hand is much more ergonomic than the right hand, but just because I have my sticks placed to my sides and not in front of me. If you're gonna have stick in front of you, then yes, probably the regular stick will be better for your right hand, or for your left hand if your left hand is dominant, but otherwise I think two Omni Throttles would be much better for me. And probably you have a question whether you can actually play space games only with 1 stick, and if it will be comfortable. I think the answer will be yes. Of course, it will not be as comfortable as playing with 2 sticks, but it will be comfortable enough, because you technically have a throttle button right here, and you can actually use this as a throttle for yourself. Like even for the games like Star Wars Squadrons, can be perfectly playable with just a single stick, and I tried it and it is perfectly playable. But it will be a bit difficult for more complex games like Star Citizen and maybe Elite Dangerous. So overall, are those sticks a good buy, and are they actually good value? In my opinion, yes, they are, but only if you are enthusiast. If you have never played games with Hotas, and if you're not that deep into space sims, that you haven't played at least 100 hours of either Star Citizen or Elite Dangerous, I would not recommend you these ones, because these ones might be a bit too advanced for you, because these things require quite a little bit of tinkering in order to make it as best as you can for you. But if you already have some experience with throttles and Hotas and things like that, then I would highly recommend this, because price to performance ratio for these things is simply amazing. And I think, in my opinion, at the moment on the market, this is the best value for the price. And I'm pretty sure you will not regret buying this, unless you have much larger budget and prefer like full metal constructions like with Verpil and things like that. But for the regular ones who want to just enjoy space games from now and then like I am, this is like perfectly fine if you have a budget for this, of course. Well, I never thought I would talk that much about Hotas. So yeah, I guess this will be it for today. Thank you for being here with me. Like the video if you like it, subscribe for more videos like this one, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. See ya.